The woman who burned my cornfields thought she'd ruined me, but when I cashed the $50 million insurance check, I realized she'd just paid for her own downfall. Now everyone in town wants to know, how did the farmer they mocked end up owning the whole community? The smell of smoke woke me before sunrise. My cornfields, 200 acres of gold, were on fire, burning faster than I could run. Flames danced violently. I stumbled outside, barefoot, heart pounding as I grabbed the hose. It was useless. The fire roared like a monster, swallowing years of work. Across the road, Karen, our HOA president, stood with her arms crossed, sipping coffee, her face glowing orange in the firelight like she'd been waiting for this. "Should have followed community standards, Thomas," she yelled, her voice sharp, cruel. "Your ugly farm ruins our view." Then she turned and walked away smiling. I dropped to my knees, tears burning hotter than the flames. The loss wasn't just corn, it was memories of my late father, every seed he'd ever planted. Before we go on, please, where are you watching from and what time is it right now? I want to see how many families, parents, and neighbors are feeling this story across the country tonight. Your comment helps this message reach more people who've faced unfair HOA rules too. The firefighters came too late. All that remained were ashes, black smoke, and Karen's perfume still lingering in the wind. I knew she did this. That night, as the embers cooled, I made one silent promise. If she wanted war, she'd get one. But not the kind she expected. I walked into my barn, unlocked my father's old desk, and pulled out a single folder, one she didn't know existed. It held the insurance documents, signed, sealed, and worth more than she could imagine. My father's foresight had just become my weapon. Karen thought she destroyed me, but she'd just burned her own downfall. The war for peace had officially begun. Before the flames, before the screaming, Karen was just a nosy neighbor in our quiet Pennsylvania ranch community, Fairbrook Meadows, built around old farmland. When my wife, Ellen, and I moved there, we were the only ones still farming. Everyone else had manicured lawns and matching mailboxes. Karen ran the HOA like a military camp. Rules about mailbox color, grass height, even what time Christmas lights could go up, it was all her control. At first, I tried to be civil. "Morning, Karen," I'd say. She'd just wrinkle her nose and mention property values, like it was holy scripture. One day, she came to my porch with papers. "Your silo violates height restrictions." "It's an eyesore," she said. I laughed. "Bad idea?" Her eyes narrowed. "We'll see how funny you think it is when the board votes." That's when I realized she wasn't just strict, she was dangerous. She began sending letters weekly. Complaints about tractors, unapproved fencing, even my dogs barking. The HOA fines piled like snow in February. But I stayed quiet. My dad once said, "Never wrestle pigs, they like the mud." I planned to outsmart her, not outshout her. Still, Karen wanted control over everything, including me. She called me the last farmer in a modern town. It wasn't an insult, it was a warning. By the time summer came, she'd already found her next move. I just didn't know it involved gasoline and my father's corn. Karen was 58, always dressed in beige suits with pearl earrings that matched her smug grin. Her power came from fear and gossip. She'd whisper at HOA meetings, turning neighbors against me. "Thomas refuses to comply," she'd say. "He thinks he's above community standards." Soon, folks I'd known for years stopped waving. They started calling me Old Man Cornfield, laughing as I drove my tractor down County Road 18. Ellen tried to calm me. "Let her have her drama," she said. "You have better things to grow than bitterness." But she didn't see what I saw. Karen wasn't after compliance. She was after control, mine, my lands, everything. The cornfield was a reminder she couldn't own me. Then came the so-called inspection day. Karen arrived with 2 board members, clipboards in hand, acting like FBI agents on a mission. "Violation of Section 3A, she said, pointing at the barn. "Rust visible from the road." I bit my tongue, nodded, and signed the notice. When they left, Ellen asked, "Why don't you fight her?" I smiled. "Because the louder she gets, the easier it is to let her hang herself." That week, I quietly called our insurance broker. The policy my father left me was still active and had grown in value. Karen wanted a war. I'd give her one, but the kind that ended in silence, signatures, and her ruin. The week before the fire, Karen ramped up her attacks. She filed 3 more complaints, one about my offensive scarecrow that mocked HOA authority. At the next meeting, she stood before everyone and said, "If Thomas won't respect Fairbrook rules, we'll handle this our way." People clapped. I looked her dead in the eye. "You touch one thing on my land, Karen, and I'll make sure every lawyer in Pennsylvania knows your name." She smiled sweetly. "Is that a threat?" "No," I said. "That's a promise." The room went quiet. The war lines were drawn. Ellen begged me to stay calm, but I could see Karen's desperation. Her control was slipping. She needed to prove her power one last time. The next night, she stood across from my fields, talking to 2 men near a silver SUV. I snapped a photo. I had a bad feeling. 2 days later, I smelled gasoline in the wind. By dawn, it was too late. The fire had already spread through the east field. Firefighters ruled it suspicious. I called the sheriff, but everyone in the HOA suddenly claimed they'd seen nothing. Typical. Karen even brought cookies the next morning, smiling. "Such a tragedy," she said. "Maybe this is a sign to sell." I nearly laughed. I told her, "You just set your own house on fire, you just don't know it yet." She blinked, confused. That was the last time she smiled. The sheriff's office dragged its feet. "No witnesses, no proof," they said. But I knew Karen left traces. She always did when she felt untouchable. I found tire marks by the fence, the same pattern as her SUVs. I kept the photos, date, and time logged carefully. Evidence builds quietly. When the insurance adjuster arrived, he whistled low. "You're lucky, Mr. Granger. The coverage on this property is substantial." I nodded, pretending surprise. "How substantial?" I asked. He smiled. $50 million if you include crop value and loss of legacy assets. Karen had no idea what was coming. As the adjuster left, Ellen asked, "Are you going to tell her?" I shook my head. "No. Let her think she won." The HOA even sent a letter suggesting I sell before further devaluation. They had no clue my destroyed field was now my fortune. Within weeks, word spread that the ranch would be rebuilt. Neighbors whispered, wondering how I could afford it. Karen's smile started to fade. She cornered me one morning at the mailboxes. "You're rebuilding? With what money?" I leaned close. "Hope you like surprises." Then I walked away. That evening, a black sedan arrived at her house. Investigators, asking questions. The fire department had found traces of accelerant near her fence line. For the first time, Karen didn't come outside. The queen of control was losing her crown. A month later, I got the insurance payout. Every cent, $50 million wired to my account, enough to rebuild 10 farms if I wanted. Ellen cried with relief. "Your father would have been proud," she said. I smiled. He planned for everything, even HOA madness. The ranch rose from ashes. New barns, modern silos, upgraded irrigation. Every nail felt like payback. Karen watched from her porch, expressionless. Then came the kicker. The insurance company filed a civil suit against any parties linked to intentional destruction. Karen's name topped the list. The sheriff reopened the case, now with state investigators. They found camera footage, blurry, but clear enough. Her SUV near the scene that night. She tried to claim it was a coincidence, but neighbors turned on her. Loyalty disappears fast when subpoenas arrive. The next board meeting was chaos. Karen shouted, "This is harassment." Someone yelled back, "You burned his farm." It was over. She resigned that night, humiliated. The HOA scrambled to distance itself from her actions, but everyone knew the truth. I didn't need revenge anymore. The system did it for me. But I wasn't done yet. I had one last surprise planned. I bought the entire HOA's land mortgage through a shell company. Karen would soon find out who her new landlord was. By winter, Fairbrook Meadows was mine. Every sidewalk, pond, and park under my holding company, Granger Estates LLC. I owned what once ruled me. When the HOA called a meeting to discuss budget issues, I attended as the new investor. Karen, pale and defeated, sat silently in the back. I stood before them calm. Ladies and gentlemen, I've purchased Fairbrook's land notes. Effective immediately, HOA dues will now fund farmland restoration. Gasps filled the room. Karen's lips trembled. You can't do that. I smiled. Actually, I can. You're standing on my property. She tried to interrupt, but no one supported her. The same board that once worshipped her now looked at me with respect and fear. Outside, she followed me, shouting, "You ruined me." I turned, looked her in the eye, and said, "No, Karen. You did that yourself." She started crying, mascara running down her face, pearls trembling against her neck. I almost felt sorry. Almost. The next week, bulldozers arrived, not for destruction, but construction. I turned her old HOA office into a museum for rural preservation. A plaque by the door read, "From Control to Growth, Fairbrook Reborn." Below it, a small line, dedicated to those who tried to stop progress. Karen moved away quietly. The town never mentioned her again. But I never forgot the sound of that fire, nor the lesson it taught me. 3 years later, my ranch was thriving again. We built a corn maze for families, opened a farmer's market, even hired veterans to work the land. Ellen called it the comeback of Fairbrook. I called it justice. The ashes had grown something far bigger than corn, respect. One day, a letter arrived. It was from Karen. The handwriting was shaky. "Thomas, I was wrong. I lost everything. I'm sorry." I read it twice, then folded it carefully. Ellen asked, "Will you reply?" I shook my head. No. Forgiveness doesn't always need words. Instead, I donated a portion of the harvest profit to local schools, under Karen's name. It wasn't pity, it was peace. The media caught wind of the story. Farmer turns tragedy into triumph. One headline read, "HOA feud sparks $50 million comeback." People visited from all over Pennsylvania to see the fields. Kids ran through rows of golden corn that once burned to nothing. Every year, I host a festival called Harvest of Hope. Families eat, laugh, and remember that sometimes destruction plants the seeds of destiny. At sunset, I always walk the same path where the fire started, the soil now rich and alive again. And I whisper, "We made it, Dad. She tried to burn us down, but you built me fireproof." A film crew from Pittsburgh arrived, wanting to tell the HOA fire saga. They called it The Burn and the Billionaire Farmer. I laughed at the exaggeration. They asked, "What motivated you to rebuild?" I answered, "Because when people try to bury you, they forget you're a seed." They loved that line. The documentary aired nationwide. Karen's name wasn't mentioned, but people guessed. Her face disappeared from town history, erased by her own doing. Fairbrook became a symbol of resilience. Schools used my story to teach about perseverance and insurance literacy, a strange mix, but it worked. Reporters visited yearly, amazed that the man once mocked by his HOA now employed half the county. I never bragged, I just kept building. Ellen once said, "Funny how the woman who burned your field ended up planting your fame." I smiled. That's poetic justice. We even invited the old HOA members to the next harvest. Most came ashamed but grateful. I welcomed them. The fight was over. Karen's house was later sold at auction. Guess who bought it? I did. Turned it into a corn research lab, the growth center. Every time I walk past her old porch, I remember the night of the fire and how she thought she'd won. She never realized, sometimes, the best revenge is letting success speak louder than flames. Now I'm 50 years old, telling this story to my grandkids by the fireplace every Thanksgiving. They listen wide-eyed, like it's a legend. "Did she really burn your corn, Grandpa?" they ask. I nod. She did. But she didn't know it was worth more than her wildest dreams. They laugh, but I always end with the truth. When someone tries to destroy your roots, remember, you decide how deep they grow. The ranch stands stronger than ever. The corn glows golden under the Pennsylvania sun, like the land itself forgave the fire. Ellen's laughter echoes through the porch, the same place where the HOA once posted fines. Now, joy lives there instead of judgment. I keep that insurance folder in my desk, a reminder of my father's wisdom and Karen's downfall. Paper can be more powerful than fire. Every autumn, I place one golden ear of corn on the museum plaque under the words Fairbrook Reborn. It's my quiet victory. People still drive by and whisper about the man whose HOA tried to ruin him. I just smile and wave. Let them talk. Because in the end, Karen didn't destroy me. She made me realize what I was capable of. And that's worth more than $50 million. It's worth peace.